Today I'm working on a BLT salad, but this one is for cool weather. It is cool weather because instead of the regular flavorful tomatoes we get in the dead of summer that are so terrific, we're going to use dried tomatoes that have been rehydrated. First step though was to cook some bacon. Now I went ahead and cooked 4 slices of bacon. The original recipe called for 8, so we've really saved a lot of fat, but we'll get a lot of flavor here because we've crumbled it up and it'll spread throughout the salad. You don't need the full 8 pieces when you're only going to serve 4 people. So we're going to start with our calorie savings that way. Then I've got 4 cups of romaine lettuce that has been shredded, and to that I'm going to add 8 ounces of mushrooms. See if I can get them all out here, that have been sliced. And lastly, the tomatoes. Now notice how the rehydrating of dried tomatoes brings back a lot of the color, makes them really pretty. You could use either dried tomatoes that are just sun-dried, or you could use the type that are in olive oil. If you use the type in olive oil, they need to be drained well, and then I cut them in half. I used regular dried tomatoes, and then I poured boiling water over them and let them sit for 20 to 30 minutes, and that allowed the time for the moisture to be pulled back into the tomato. One thing you need to remember, if you didn't dry your own tomatoes, if you go and buy them from the store, usually the dried tomatoes there have salt added, so you may want to cut back even more on the sodium or the salt in this recipe than I did. In fact, if that's the case, you probably want to leave the salt out completely. Now we're just going to set that aside a little bit and start on the dressing for this. What we have for that is 3 tablespoons of olive oil and 3 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. And you could use another flavor if you chose to. The red wine vinegar tends to bring out a lot of that tomatoey flavor though, and it makes it really nice. I've got 1/8 of a teaspoon of sugar, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of black pepper. And we're just going to whisk those together a little bit until we get a semi-permanent emulsion here. Actually, it's going to be pretty temporary. We're going to whisk it together. And the part of the salad I've done so far, you could do a little bit ahead of time, but once you get ready for the dressing, that needs to be pretty much about the time you're ready to serve. All right, this is going to go back over the top of our salad, and we're just going to toss that together. That little bit of sugar really helps cut the acid both in the tomatoes, brings out the sweetness in the tomatoes, and also helps cut that acid flavor that you get from the vinegar and gives you more of a sweet and sour flavor. As I said, I did cut the tomatoes in half. The original recipe didn't call for that, but tomato slices, that when they were complete halves, they were just a little bit too big. So that was one way to make it a little bit nicer. Interestingly enough, one of the favorite lettuces of the American public, while most people don't admit to liking iceberg lettuce best, that's the one we use the most of. And part of the reason we use so much of that iceberg lettuce is because it's nice and crispy, and it gives a nice crunch in salads. And so the increased consumption of romaine in the last 10 years has been amazing. And part of that is because it's a darker green and thus it's more nutritious, but also that darker green, this kind of lettuce still gives you lots of crunch. So you get the benefit of the nutrition and you still get all the crunchiness. I've got 1/4 of a cup of green onions that I'm going to divide among the 4 servings of the salad, and then you divide that bacon among all 4 servings, and there you have a wonderful BLT salad for cool weather. Just the kind of thing you can eat in the middle of winter and still think it's the middle of summer. For Oklahoma Gardening, this is Barbara Brown.